The shocking rival, Monica Quartermain's secret son, disrupts Port Charles forever. The solemn atmosphere at All Saints Chapel had never felt heavier, as Port Charles gathered to bid farewell to one of its most beloved figures, Dr. Monica Quartermain, the matriarch of the Quartermain family, who had devoted nearly 5 decades of her life to General Hospital and the community, lay at rest surrounded by flowers and the tearful faces of those whose lives she had touched. Jason Morgan stood at the front of the chapel, his usual stoic demeanor cracking as he greeted mourners filing in to pay their respects. The man who had once rejected his adoptive mother's love now served as the unofficial host of her memorial service, a role that seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders. Beside him, Tracy Quartermain maintained her composure, though those who knew her well could see the grief etched in every line of her face. The service had proceeded exactly as Monica would have wanted, dignified, heartfelt, and filled with stories of her remarkable legacy. Ned Quartermain shared memories of his stepmother's unwavering dedication to family, while Elizabeth Baldwin spoke of Monica's mentorship to countless medical professionals. Over the years, Laura Collins, as Port Charles mayor, emphasized how Monica had been a pillar of the community, someone who bridged differences and brought people together. But just as the lawyer prepared to read Monica's final wishes, the chapel doors burst open with a force that made everyone turn in shock. A man in his 40s, disheveled and clearly emotional, strode down the aisle with determined steps. His appearance was so sudden and dramatic that several mourners gasped audibly. "Wait," the stranger called out, his voice echoing through the sacred space. "Please, before you continue, I need to say something. I need to be here for this." Jason immediately stepped forward, his protective instincts kicking in. "Sir, this is a private service. I'm going to have to ask you to." "My name is Henry," the man interrupted, his voice cracking with emotion. "Henry Quartermain, and Monica was my mother." The silence that followed was deafening. Brooklyn Quartermain, seated near the front with her husband Chase, felt her blood run cold. Something about this man's sudden appearance didn't sit right with her, and her instincts for detecting deception honed through years of Quartermain family drama immediately went on high alert. Ned's face flushed with anger as he stood up. "That's impossible. Monica never had another son. Who are you really, and what do you want?" Jason's jaw tightened as he assessed the situation. Years of working in dangerous situations had taught him to read people, and every alarm bell in his head was ringing. "Security," he said quietly to Chase, who was already reaching for his phone. But Henry was prepared for their skepticism. From a worn leather messenger bag, he withdrew a manila envelope thick with contents. "I know how this looks," he said, his voice steadying as he addressed the shocked congregation. "I know you have no reason to believe me, but I have proof." With trembling hands, he pulled out several black and white photographs. The first showed a young Monica, barely recognizable but unmistakably her, standing beside a man in what appeared to be the 1980s. She was holding a baby, and her expression was tender yet sad. The second photo showed the same baby as a toddler, this time with Monica alone, her medical badge visible on her white coat. Tracy rose from her seat, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Anyone can fake photographs these days. This is ridiculous." "There's more," Henry continued, pulling out what appeared to be a birth certificate. "I was born at Mercy Hospital on October 15, 1982. Mother's name, Monica Bard Quartermain. Father's name, unknown." The date sent a ripple of recognition to those family members who had been around in the early 1980s. That was during one of Monica's more turbulent periods, a time when she had briefly separated from Alan and had been dealing with professional pressures at the hospital. Brooklyn studied Henry's face intently. There was something about his bone structure, the way he held himself, that reminded her of the Quartermain men, but her gut instinct told her this was too convenient, too perfectly timed. Monica's death had been announced less than a week ago, and now suddenly a long-lost son appears at her funeral? "Even if these documents are real," Jason said, his voice controlled but menacing, "why now? Why haven't we ever heard from you before? Where have you been for over 40 years? Henry's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the casket. "She gave me up when I was 18 months old. She was young, unmarried at the time of my birth, and facing enormous pressure from the medical community. Having an illegitimate child could have destroyed her career back then." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I was adopted by a family in California. Good people who loved me and gave me their name Harrison. But they told me the truth when I turned 18. The name Harrison caught Chase's attention, given his own first name. He exchanged glances with Brooke Lynn, both of them noting the coincidence. I hired private investigators over the years, Henry continued. I learned about all of Eugison, AJ, Emily. I knew Monica had built a beautiful family, and I didn't want to disrupt that. But when I saw the news about her death, his voice broke completely. I realized I'd waited too long. I'll never get to tell her I forgive her. I'll never get to thank her for making the hardest decision of her life. The emotional weight of his words moved several people in the congregation to tears, but Brooke Lynn remained skeptical. She leaned over to whisper to Chase, "This is too neat, too perfectly crafted. Real grief doesn't come with prepared speeches and conveniently timed photograph reveals." The lawyer, clearly uncomfortable with the disruption, but legally obligated to proceed, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should continue with the reading of the will, and Mr. Harrisoner, Henry can be contacted later for verification of his claims." "Actually," Henry said, reaching into his bag once more, "I think you'll find my name mentioned in that document." Every eye in the chapel fixed on the lawyer as he nervously shuffled through Monica's will. His face went pale as he found what he was looking for. This is highly unusual. But there is indeed a provision here for one Henry Michael Harrison, described as my son born October 15, 1982. Given up for adoption, but never forgotten." The gasps from the congregation were audible this time. Tracy sank back into her pew, her face a mask of shock. Jason's fists clenched at his sides as the implications hit him. Ned looked as though he might faint. "The provision states that if Henry Michael Harrison can prove his identity through DNA testing and provide documentation of his adoption, he is to receive a bequest of $500,000, as well as a 5% stake in ELQ Industries." The lawyer continued reading. Brooke Lynn felt sick. This was exactly the kind of scenario she'd seen play out before Simeone, with just enough information to seem legitimate, armed with documents that could be forged, appearing at the most emotionally vulnerable moment possible. But she was the only one who seemed to see it. As family members began to reluctantly approach Henry, offering condolences and tentative acceptance, Brooke Lynn made a decision. She was going to prove this man was a fraud, no matter what it took. Monica Quartermain deserved better than to have her memory tainted by a con artist looking to cash in on her death. The weeks that followed Henry's dramatic appearance saw him slowly, but surely ingratiating himself into the Quartermain family. DNA results which he claimed matched samples he'd preserved from items Monica had touched during a chance encounter years earlier seemed to confirm his identity. His knowledge of Monica's early career, gleaned from what he claimed were adoption records and private investigation reports, was impressive enough to convince most family members. But Brooke Lynn remained unconvinced. She watched as Henry charmed Tracy with stories of Monica's compassion, as he bonded with Jason over their shared sense of abandonment by the Quartermain legacy, and as he impressed Ned with his knowledge of ELQ's business history. To everyone else, Henry was exactly what he claimed to be Monica's lost son, finally home where he belonged. Yet something in his eyes, a calculation behind the tears, told Brooke Lynn otherwise. She began her own investigation, determined to expose the truth before this stranger could completely infiltrate and potentially destroy the family Monica had worked so hard to protect and nurture throughout her life. The stage was set for a battle that would test the very foundation of the Quartermain family, with Monica's true legacy hanging in the balance. Next, we will dive deep into the sizzling turmoil shaking up Port Charles, where the Ashford family's tensions are boiling over in ways that have viewers absolutely hooked and heated. In the heart of this chaotic storm, Curtis Ashford finds himself caught between lingering loyalties and fresh betrayals, all sparked by a seemingly innocent evening that unraveled into a full-blown marital crisis. Picture this: Curtis, still reeling from the shock of Drew Kane's shooting, decided to unwind with a casual drink alongside his ex-wife, Jordan Ashford, at a quiet corner of the Metro Court. It was nothing more than a moment of solace, a chance to vent about the day's horrors without any romantic undertones. But for his current wife, Portia Robinson, this simple act ignited a firestorm of accusations and ultimatums. Portia, blinded by jealousy, confronted Curtis in a heated exchange that spilled out right in front of their daughter, Trina Robinson, leaving the young woman stunned and the family bonds frayed. What makes this blow-up even more infuriating for fans is the glaring inconsistency in Portia's stance. Had just declared their marriage null and void, yet here she was, painting Curtis as the ultimate villain for sharing a platonic drink. To add layers to this mess, whispers around Port Charles suggest Portia wasn't exactly innocent that night. In fact, She sought comfort in the arms of the enigmatic Dr. Isaiah Gannon, a charming newcomer whose medical expertise has already turned heads in the hospital corridors. This secret rendezvous, hidden beneath layers of denial, exposes a raw hypocrisy that has loyal General Hospital watchers shaking their heads in disbelief. As the drama unfolds, it's clear that Curtis is grappling with not just the immediate fallout, but also the deeper questions of trust and forgiveness in a town where secrets rarely stay buried. Delving further into Portia's explosive reaction, it's impossible to ignore how her outrage stems from a place of profound double standards, one that fans are quick to call out as utterly exhausting. While Curtis was merely confiding in Jordan over a glass of scotch, discussing the chaos surrounding Drew's near-fatal incident and the ongoing investigation that has the whole town on edge, Portia was entangled in a passionate affair that directly violated the vows she now claims to hold sacred. Imagine the irony. She storms in, declaring the end of their union with dramatic flair, only to turn around and act as if Curtis's harmless interaction is the true betrayal. This isn't just a one-off lapse. It ties into Portia's pattern of selective morality, where her own missteps are conveniently glossed over. Fans have been vocal on platforms like Twitter and Instagram, posting memes and rants that highlight how Portia's claims of emotional pain ring hollow. After she jumped into bed with Isaiah mere hours after ending things with Curtis. To make matters worse, Trina overheard the entire confrontation, her wide-eyed shock adding a heartbreaking layer to the scene. After all, she's already navigated enough family secrets, from the long-concealed truth about her biological father to the shadowy manipulations involving Heather Weber, whose tampering with medical records once threatened to upend everything. Inventing new twists to this narrative, some speculate that Portia's fling with Isaiah might have roots in unresolved tensions from her high-stress job at the hospital, where Isaiah's rival as a brilliant surgeon provided a tempting escape from her marital woes. Yet, this doesn't excuse the deflection. Her fury at Curtis seems more like a smokescreen to hide her guilt, eroding any moral authority she might have claimed. As viewers dissect these moments, it's evident that Portia's web of deceptions is starting to unravel, leaving Curtis to ponder if reconciliation is even possible amid such blatant inconsistencies. Shifting the spotlight to Jordan Ashford, it's no wonder she's emerging as the beacon of reliability in this tangled tale, drawing fans to root for a potential reunion that could restore some much-needed balance to Curtis's life. Unlike Portia's penchant for drama and hidden agendas, Jordan embodies a straightforward, no-frills approach that's refreshingly honest, qualities that shone through during their impromptu drink session. That evening wasn't about rekindling old flames. It was a genuine exchange between two people with a shared past, bonded by years of co-parenting Trina and navigating Port Charles's endless crises. Jordan, with her background as a no-nonsense deputy mayor and former detective, offers Curtis the kind of stability he craves, especially now as he juggles the emotional weight of the shooting probe and its ripple effects on his loved ones. Fans are buzzing with theories, imagining scenarios where Jordan steps in as more than just a friend, perhaps helping Curtis investigate subtle clues about Drew's attacker, drawing on her law enforcement expertise to uncover hidden motives that tie back to Portia's own hospital connections, adding inventive depth. Envision Jordan discovering a cryptic note from Isaiah that hints at deeper hospital intrigue, pulling Curtis closer to her orbit and away from Portia's chaos. Social media is flooded with support for this pairing, with comments like "Jordan is the real deal, Curtis deserves better," highlighting how her transparency contrasts sharply with Portia's games. For Trina, a reunion could mean smoother family dynamics, as Jordan has always prioritized harmony and open communication, unlike the explosive secrets that have defined her life with Portia. As speculation builds around Curtis's next move, the big question looms: what happens if the truth about Portia's indiscretion comes crashing into the open? Currently, Curtis is focused on piecing his family back together, supporting Trina through her own romantic entanglements and ensuring the Ashford legacy remains intact amid Port Charles's undercurrents of danger. But learning of the affair could be the catalyst that sends him running straight into Jordan's arms, reigniting a spark that never fully extinguished. Fans are already envisioning dramatic confrontations, perhaps at a high society event like the Nurses' Ball, where Portia and Isaiah's chemistry becomes impossible to ignore, forcing Curtis to choose between forgiveness and freedom. Inventing fresh elements. Imagine Curtis stumbling upon incriminating text messages on Portia's phone during a routine family dinner, leading to a tense standoff that echoes the original blow-up but with even higher stakes. Online forums, especially Facebook groups dedicated to General Hospital, are alive with polls and debates, many declaring Team Jordan forever, as they urge Curtis to break free from Portia's manipulative hold. A reunion with Jordan might not only heal past wounds, but also open doors to new storylines, like joint ventures and community safety initiatives that strengthen their bond. However, Portia's deep connection through Trina could act as an anchor, making divorce a painful perspective. Her hypocrisy makes forgiveness a hard pill to swallow for both Curtis and the audience. Wrapping up this whirlwind of Ashford family intrigue, the fans' verdict is resounding. It's time for Curtis to prioritize authenticity over endless drama, with Portia's history of lies piling up from the paternity bombshell that rocked Trina's world, to the ethical lapses involving Heather's schemes. Many believe Curtis would thrive by reconnecting with Jordan, who represents a path of mutual respect and reliability. Of course, soap operas thrive on twists, so perhaps Portia will attempt a grand gesture of redemption, like confessing everything in a tearful hospital scene surrounded by concerned colleagues. But if Curtis opts to salvage the marriage, it'll require overlooking betrayals that have left scars too deep to ignore. Ultimately, the choice rests with him: embrace the honest familiarity of his ex, or navigate the stormy waters of reconciliation. Next, we will uncover the enigmatic puzzle surrounding Britt Westburn's unexpected discovery at Bobby's, where a mysterious package containing her vital medications arrived alongside a cryptic note, simply signed by the letter C, leaving Port Charles residents and fans alike buzzing with theories about the shadowy benefactor's true identity. The scene at Bobby's unfolded like a classic soap opera twist, with Britt, long thought to be gone from the land of the living, suddenly reappearing, in a state of quiet desperation, her Huntington's disease symptoms flaring up without her essential treatments. Imagine the shock rippling through the diner as patrons whispered about her frail figure, clutching the delivered box, its contents not only replenishing her life-sustaining meds, but also enclosing that single, tantalizing note hinting at a hidden ally or perhaps a more sinister force at play. This development ties into the broader undercurrents of resurrection and redemption that have defined recent Port Charles storylines, where death is rarely final, and old grudges resurface with alarming frequency, adding a fresh layer to this intrigue. Some speculate that the package was routed through an anonymous courier service, operating out of the shadowy edges of the city's docks, a detail that could link back to underground networks, long associated with the town's most notorious figures. As Britt pores over the note, her mind races through possibilities, wondering if C represents a guardian angel from her turbulent past, or a puppet master pulling strings for a larger scheme involving her family's dark legacy. This mystery not only revives questions about Britt's own improbable return, but also stirs memories of her complex relationships, from her bond with her mother Liesel Obrick to her fleeting romances that often ended in heartbreak. Diving into one of the most chilling possibilities, the C could stand for Caesar Faison, the diabolical mastermind whose reign of terror left an indelible scar on Port Charles for decades, through acts of relentless kidnapping, psychological torment, and cold-blooded murders that targeted everyone from beloved heroes to his own flesh and blood. Remember how Jason Morgan finally put an end to his madness by firing the fatal shot, after Caesar's heinous act of killing his son Nathan West, only for the villain's body to vanish under suspicious circumstances? Yet, in the ever-twisting world of General Hospital, where graves are merely temporary resting places, both Nathan and Britt have clawed their way back from the supposed dead, prompting fans to wonder if their infamous father might follow suit in a grand, undead family reunion. Inventing an intriguing new element, envision Caesar having faked his demise with the help of a rogue scientist, who preserved not just his brain in that oft-mentioned jar at the WSB labs, but perhaps his entire consciousness uploaded into a clandestine digital network, allowing him to orchestrate events from afar, like sending anonymous aid to Britt. As a twisted form of paternal redemption, soap lore often plants such seeds, actors casually referencing that preserved brain in recent episodes feels like deliberate foreshadowing, hinting that it might be a decoy organ from another unfortunate soul, not Caesar's at all. However, the idea of 3 Faison family members rising from the ashes simultaneously raises eyebrows. It could either be a stroke of narrative genius or an overload of resurrections that tests the limits of believability, especially with Caesar's history of using aliases and disguises to evade justice time and again. Shifting gears to a more contemporary suspect, C might refer to Cyrus Renaud, the slick and ruthless crime lord whose brief but brutal tenure in Port Charles included orchestrating the deaths of fan favorites like Sam McCall and Dex Heller, alongside a slew of other felonies that painted him as a modern-day scourge. With ties to international syndicates, his apparent end came at the hands of Jocelyn Jacks, who delivered the lethal blow in a moment of high-stakes confrontation, after which the World Security Bureau claimed to have disposed of his remains in a hush-hush operation that left room for doubt. But let's not forget the cunning Jack Brennan, whose WSB maneuvers often blur the lines between ally and adversary. He have engineered Cyrus's death as an elaborate ruse to recruit Jocelyn into their ranks, all while stashing the villain away for future use. Expanding on this with a creative twist, picture Cyrus having escaped to the remote Five Poppies facility, a rumored black site prison where Britt herself was allegedly held captive during her absence, allowing him to intercept her medical needs and slip in that signed note as part of a larger plot to manipulate Professor Dalton's experimental research into life-extending serums. Dalton, with his enigmatic experiments on human resilience, might be unwittingly connected to Cyrus's survival, perhaps through stolen formulas that could explain how the villain cheated death yet again. This theory gains traction when considering Cyrus's penchant for biblical allusions and redemption arcs. Sending meds to Britt could be his way of atoning for past sins against her extended circle, or worse, a ploy to draw out enemies like Sonny Corinthos for a final showdown. Of course, no Port Charles mystery would be complete without pointing fingers at the infamous Casadini clan, whose family tree is riddled with schemers, sorcerers, and supposed specters who excel at turning chaos into opportunity, making any C signature a potential nod to their enduring influence. At the forefront might be Valentine Casadini, whose shadowy dealings and recent alliances suggest he could be dipping his toes into this Britt-related enigma, though his style leans more towards subtle manipulation than outright masterminding such a bold move. But the Casadinis are notorious for defying death. Most are presumed gone, yet Port Charles history proves that's no barrier to dramatic comebacks. Take the legendary Helena Casadini, the matriarch whose venomous presence terrorized generations. Her return would be a delicious shock, perhaps motivated by a vendetta against Liesel or a desire to control Britt's fate through advanced genetic therapies hidden in those meds, adding inventive flair. Imagine Helena having orchestrated a secret lab in the catacombs beneath Windermere, where she's been regenerating her body using forbidden Casadini artifacts. Then there's Spencer Casadini, lost at sea in a tragic accident that left fans clamoring for his revival. His genuine friendship with Britt, built on shared vulnerabilities, might have driven him to scour the globe for a Huntington's cure, signing the note as a subtle clue to his survival while hiding out in exotic locales like Monaco. Don't overlook Nicolas Casadini, who could have broken free from his prison confines through a daring escape involving bribed guards and hidden tunnels, motivated by lingering affections or family loyalties to aid Britt in her hour of need. And let's not forget Victor Casadini, whose obsession with Liesel Obert ran deep. Preserving her daughter's life through anonymous interventions fits his profile of grand, obsessive gestures, perhaps tied to a posthumous plan activated by loyal henchmen. With a roster of other deceased Casadinis like Stavros or Mikos waiting in the wings for potential resurrections, the possibilities are endless, each one weaving into the tapestry of intrigue that keeps General Hospital's legacy alive. As this web of speculation thickens, the burning question remains: who is the elusive C behind Britt's life-saving package, and what grand scheme might they be setting in motion for Port Charles? From Faison's potential undead resurgence to Cyrus's calculated survival tactics, or the ever-resilient Casadini dynasty's machinations, each theory adds fuel to the fire of anticipation. GH fans, we've laid out the suspects. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Drop your guesses in the comments below. Is it the villainous Caesar, pulling strings from beyond the grave, the scheming Cyrus plotting his comeback, or a Casadini like Helena or Spencer rising from the ashes? Like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite soap twists. Because in the world of General Hospital, every signature holds the key to the next explosive revelation. Stay vigilant. Port Charles Watcher's truth is out there, waiting to be unveiled.